Hi, everybody. Welcome to the special focus meeting, 100-pounder meeting of Overeaters Anonymous. My name is Rita Q. The 11th of December, 2024. And today I am absolutely delighted to welcome Lindsey W. Lindsey comes from Texas and came to OA around about 2005. And I'm going to hand it over to her now to share her experience, strength, and hope.
Thank you, Rita. Good morning. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Lindsey, and I am a compulsive overeater, just starting my time. Oh man, I am just so grateful to be here. And I just a lot of times get really emotional at the beginning of shares because sometimes I still can't believe it. Like I can't believe that I have recovery to share. It was just 4 years ago this month that, I spent Christmas Eve and Christmas Day in the drive-through of McDonald's, binging while my family waited on me for Christmas Eve celebration and Christmas dinner. Like I had a loving family at home, a great celebration. I mean, all the things that you would want, but I couldn't get through the day without using. And that was my life. And so to be here today and to be able to say that I have over 3.5 years of food sobriety is like beyond a miracle. I mean, I don't even have a word to describe it. So I'll quickly share my photos to qualify. So I very much qualify to be a speaker at the 100-pounder meeting. Let's see here. So this disease manifests itself for me as morbid obesity. I am 5'3", and at my heaviest, I was 350 pounds. So these are just some photos of, the before. And I always kind of laugh because I still tried to be stylish. I've got my little fur on and I've got my denim jacket, but behind the eyes, there's nothing. I was trying so hard, but I just hated my existence. And I remember this photo on the far right was at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. And our company's CEO had actually come into town to take us to the rodeo and to a big concert. It's a big thing here in Houston. And we had to walk up one of these NFL stadiums, like ramp after ramp after ramp after ramp. And at 350 pounds, I mean, I literally thought I was going to die. And I was trying, to like keep up conversation, and I'm sweating and I can't breathe and my ankles hurt. And I'm just like, I hated everything. I hated being around people. And then we get to the very top. And then I realized I'm probably not going to fit in one of these seats. Like I'm probably not going to fit. And so I went to the bathroom, trying to get myself together. And then I did what I always did, was like fake sick. I'm not feeling well. I got to go. And, here's the CEO of my company. Like, where did Lindsey go? And it was just, that's how I lived my life, like constant anxiety, fear, trying to escape. I couldn't show up. I could not show up. And it's not because I was a bad person. It's because I had a disease that was killing me. Here are some more before photos of me. As you can see, I'm a big sports fan. This was at that same NFL stadium. I took my nephew to a game, could barely squeeze myself in the seat, was totally miserable. Here are some photos sort of on the journey of recovery as I was losing weight, really back out there in the world. These pictures are really meaningful to me because the one on the left, this is my niece and nephews. I don't have children of my own. And so these are like my children. And, I got to go to Disney World with them, and we walked like tens of thousands of steps. I rode every roller coaster. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm a heroin level addict with the food. When I see people under the bridge here in Houston, Texas, like, there, but for the grace of God, go I. Like, seriously. And so the fact that I have this life and this experience today, oh, thank God for it. I mean, really, like, I got nothing else to say other than that. Here on the right, I took all the guys in my family to an NFL game, had a great time. Here are some side by sides I like to share. So again, for any of my fellow sports lovers, this was the Astros World Series game. I had first baseline tickets, amazing seats, and all I wanted to do was get out. I was apologizing for taking up space. I just wanted out of every scenario that I was in, and I just felt like nobody wanted me around. It's that idea of like when I get on the airplane, I'm like, oh God, the person that's sitting next to me is going to be really upset. The person who's getting stuck next to me at the baseball stadium is going to be really upset. I hate myself. Why am I here? And then on the right next to it, I like to do the side by side because I got to go to an Angels game in Los Angeles with people that I've met in OA. And I had a very different experience. And then again, just like side by sides of an event I used to go to that show the physical recovery. So my sponsor says a big part of why those of us who have a significant amount of weight loss, part of why we show our photos is because it makes people like lean in, right? Like, you now know that I understand. And, but it's really important. This part of my story is really important to share. On page 64 of the big book, it says that, I've not just been mentally and physically ill, but I've been spiritually sick. And when the spiritual malady is overcome, then we straighten out mentally and physically. So it's a spiritual sickness. It's a spiritual malady. Now that sounds insane because here I am walking around at 350 pounds. Right? I mean, I'm trying the diets, I'm trying the trainers. I mean, I don't have to go through the list here. Like, we all know, but I've tried it all. And I've tried therapy, I've tried it all. And you're telling me like it's a spiritual sickness that got me to 350 pounds? Like, that makes no sense. And it tells me in the big book that a psychic change, a change in thinking, is the key to recovery for me. And that is so true for me. So, look, if you're on this meeting and you just binged, if you're planning your next binge, if you are driving through somewhere right now and with your camera off, like, I am you. I've been there. I understand. And like, I'm here to tell you that there is hope here. And for me, when the spiritual malady was overcome, then and only then did I straighten out mentally and physically. So the 200-pound weight loss is so cool and great and all of that. But it is far down on the list of the benefits that I've gotten from this recovery. And I would have thought I was crazy if I heard me saying that too, but that really is my experience. And and I'm going to talk a little bit more about what it was like. But I will share, today's been a rough morning for me. It's about 10 o'clock a.m. here. I've been up since about 5:30. And it's just been a really emotionally draining morning. It's been hard. I didn't want to show up. Like, if I could have just gone and like pulled the covers over my head and said like, screw it all, that's really what I would have liked to have done. And by the way, that's what I did all the time in my disease. And instead, today, I reached out to one of my greatest friends, and the fact that like I have friends in this program that know me so well that I can be totally honest with and share what's really going on with me. And they point me back to truth and they point me back to God. And I can go to God and I can pray and I can show up and like be of service, even though I'm feeling sad and a lot of fear. I can show up anyway. And that is a big part of this recovery experience for me, is that when I was in the food, I would not feel anything. If I thought maybe I was going to feel sad in 2 hours, I would go ahead and order my food. Like I thought negative feelings would destroy me. Like I really didn't think I could survive them. And I can, with God's help, I can. And it is not always fun. I remember like envying people. Like when I was in my disease, I would see someone, maybe on social media or something like that I followed, going through intense grief. And I remember feeling envy because I was like, oh, wow, like what would it be like to be able to really feel, like to really be alive in that way and feel those feelings, that would be so beautiful. Well, doesn't always feel beautiful when it's happening. I'm here to tell you, but it feels amazing to be sober at the end of every day and to really have that full living experience. Like I experience all the joy and all the happiness, and I experience the sadness. And I've been through a lot of loss in the last 3.5 years. Like that grief, like one of my sponsors says, it's like your skin is just peeling off. But I get through it and I don't have to use food. And that is like the miracle of recovery, right? So, I think I would imagine my story is similar to a lot of stories, in this room, like grew up, like I was obsessed with food from a young age. I lived in sort of this escapism, like desire for fantasy world. I remember like in junior high, I would go to my bedroom and like grab a pen and paper and like I would create fake plans with people, like people I wasn't even friends with, but like the popular kids in school, because I always wanted, like I either felt inferior to you or I felt like I was better than you. Like I could never just be one among many. And I still struggle with that today. That's still something I go to God with a lot. And so I'd go to my room and make these fake plans. Oh, I'm going to the mall with Brandy and Chelsea. And then this person's mom is picking us up. And then this guy, we're going to hang out. And like, I was just always looking to escape reality. Like my reality was not acceptable to me. And I don't know why, right? And it tells us in the big book, like, this isn't about why. Figuring out why I'm a compulsive overeater avails me nothing. I mean, I remember being in therapist offices for decades. And then I remember she was like, are you willing to just eat a small baked potato? And I'm like, sure, thinking like, am I going to go to Wendy's or Arby's after this? Well, I'll probably go to both. Like the therapy did not help because it doesn't matter if I know why. I just need to know, what do I have to do? Because the truth is, my spiritual condition is not dependent on how I feel. It's just dependent on what I'm doing. Because if today I said, how's my spiritual condition? I would say it's pretty bad because I am, I'm experiencing a lot of emotional turmoil. But if you look at what I did today, I woke up, I meditated, I prayed, I wrote, I worked with 2 sponsees, I made an outreach call. I am here. So, I mean, thank God, I think my spiritual condition is good today, so it's not about what I feel like, it's about what am I doing? And somebody says, taking the 3rd step, every time that I do something I don't want to do, I'm taking the 3rd step. And I really love that. It's like contrary action, contrary action. Recovery is a lot of doing what I don't want to do. Contrary action. 3rd step, turn over what I think, turn over what I do. Just turn it over. God, thy will be done. And so, yeah, so anyway, obsessed with food at a young age, went to college and, did the whole, I was free. So I started going to multiple fast food restaurants in one binge, or I'd get like multiple drinks at one place. So they would think I was ordering for me and all my friends. I remember this one particular moment that's really defining in sort of just seeing the powerlessness of this is that I had gone home for the weekend. I went to college about 4 hours away from home, had gone home for the weekend. And my parents were like, hey, looks like you're spending a lot of money on food. Don't forget, you have a meal plan at the university cafeteria, and also go to the grocery store, go buy some food and cook it. That's a good idea. And I really, it reminds me a lot of Bill's story in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I identify so much with Bill because I meant business. I really wanted to change. I desperately wanted to change. I didn't want to keep doing what I was doing. I hated it. I hated myself for it. And I remember, we made the whole plan. I'm driving back into the city where I went to college, and I remember having this feeling, and this was like over 20 years ago. It was like my steering wheel turned against my will into the fast food restaurant. And it's like, I'll never forget that. It was like that horror of like, wait a second, I don't want to do this, but I'm doing it anyway. And it was terrifying. And I didn't have the language for it. Like, I didn't have the language to say, oh, I'm powerless over this. I was just like, I'm screwed. Something is really wrong with me. And I think I just lost all hope at that point in time. And it was still going to be nearly 20 years until I got into recovery. And so this continued on and on. And, in my disease, I moved around some, tried the geographical cure. I got married, behaved very, like an unwell person in that marriage. I've since made amends. I just finished 4 years of financial amends to my former spouse. Like, I've cleaned up that wreckage, but I created a lot of wreckage. And, at one point I had an eviction notice on my door. I was in my 30s. I had just moved back to Houston from New York, and I was ordering so much delivery food that I didn't have the money in my account to cover it. I didn't care. I was ordering hundreds of dollars each meal on delivery, and I would just incur an insufficient funds fee every time. Whatever, who cares? As long as I get my food. I remember, and so then I get an eviction notice on my door. I'm getting kicked out of my apartment as a 30-something with a good job. So then I go to my parents, who do not have the money, and ask them to help me. And I said, I'm going to get into recovery. I'm going to go to OA meetings. Like, nevertheless, I still thought I could control the situation. Like, I'm literally getting kicked out of my apartment. I can hardly walk to my car. I can't wipe myself. I can't dry myself off after I take a shower unless I want to spend like an hour in bed resting from the intensity that created for me. And yet I'm still thinking I can control the situation. I had a really good job, and I would leave work in the middle of the day. I would go to McDonald's. I would get food for like a family of 6+ and sit in my car and eat like in a very violent way, like a wild animal in my car. And then I would get on my phone, cancel all my meetings for the afternoon, go home. It's like a heroin addict. It's like, stick in the needle, I'm done, turn my phone over. That's it. I was eating for oblivion. I wanted out. And it was working. I wanted out. And I remember it was about, it was in the summer of 2020, right as we had entered lockdown for a couple of months. And it was a Sunday afternoon, and I was like, okay, I should probably weigh myself just to see where we are here, because I knew I was in big time trouble. And I remember I weighed in at 350 pounds. And, it was one of those moments for me that was like, oh my God, like I'm in trouble. Like and I had this vision of like myself on that show, My 600-Pound Life, because it was like, that's where I was headed. Like I was like, I can't stop this. I can't stop it. If I could have stopped it, I would have. And by the way, like, to any newcomers here, if I could have done better, I would have done better. I'm not a bad person. I'm not a weak person. I'm a sick person. I have an illness. So if I could have done it, I would have done it. I am powerless over this thing. And I know it's so hard to admit. It's hard to even understand, but I'm powerless over food. I'm powerless over even being willing to put down the food, because if I could have, I would have. Are you kidding me? I wouldn't have wanted to give 2 decades of my life to this disease. I wouldn't have wanted to give away my childbearing years to this disease. I wouldn't have wanted to give away, you name it. This disease took a lot from me, and I couldn't have done better. And, I weighed in that day at 350. And the remorse, horror, and hopelessness of that moment. Maybe you think I'm about to tell you that was my bottom. And then I went into OA and I started working at steps. Well, no, because guess what? When I feel that level of remorse, horror, and hopelessness, what do I do to make myself feel better? I binge. That is the only way I knew to feel better. And by the way, today, there are only 2 options for somebody like me. So today, this morning, and the last couple of days when I've been experiencing some disturbance, resentment, fear, I have 2 options. I still only have 2. I could go to the food, and the food would make it better for however long. Someone says 8 seconds. I think maybe 5 minutes. Just depends, right? But then I would hate myself and want to kill myself, and I have no idea if I would ever get a day 1 again. That's an option, and it always is. When people say food is not an option, I understand what they're saying, but for me, it's always an option. It will always be an option. And number 2, my other option is go to God. And today that looked like calling my friend and saying, yikes, I think I'm creating some wreckage here. I'm really upset, and I need help. Because just like I reached out in those first few days of abstinence and said, I want to eat, I need help. Today, I want to act out. I want to create wreckage. I want to be wildly codependent. I need help. Because if I don't get help, I'm going to go back to the food. I am. And if I ever think I'm not, I'm in trouble. Because you saw those before photos. And if that disease is progressive like I believe it is, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. And whether I like it or not, because I can pursue the illusion that I'm like other people into the gates of insanity or death. And that, I believe, my bottom is when I die. So I didn't hit my bottom yet. I didn't. I don't believe in that. I don't believe I hit my bottom and I came in, because there's still more bottom until I'm in the ground. That's my belief. And so anyway, binged. Then there was like a day where, it was like I had a physical issue as a result of being 350. And I just had this moment, this moment of grace. Call the sponsor who I tried to work with before. I was one of those that would ghost every sponsor. I wouldn't even call you and tell you I wasn't going to work with you anymore. I would just disappear, whoosh, vanish. To many people, like a lot of people in these rooms. Like, thank God that we all work programs so that people love me and accept me, because otherwise I'd have a lot of people really resentful at me in OA. I probably do, but that's fine. Anyway, called one of the sponsors I'd worked with before. And I said, what do I do? Like, I'll do anything. I always say I was like bloodied and bruised and just on the ground. I wasn't even crawling. I was just like, help, please. And for that moment, I was willing to do what somebody else told me to do. In in the doctor's opinion, it says something in the very beginning where it says, it's like, okay, this is an alcoholic I'd come to regard as hopeless. And when I read through this with sponsees, and I'm always doing the work again when I'm in it with sponsees, the way I see hopelessness is that I'm out of ideas. If I still have ideas about how something else could work, or maybe this would work for me, like, I won't do this. Because this is a lot of work. I mean, I told you what I already did today on a day when I just wanted to crawl back in bed and blame the world and everybody in it for doing me wrong. But I had to show up and do this work because my life depends on it. And I had to be so incredibly, entirely 1000% hopeless and out of ideas before I was willing to do that. And so again, out of 119 other people, I'm sure there are plenty here who are not able to stop. Maybe you're eating now, maybe you're gonna eat, maybe you already did. It's okay, because I'm powerless over this. And I had to exhaust all of my ideas before I was out of them. And I know that that's hard to hear. It was really hard and upsetting for me to hear, but I had to. I had to exhaust all of my ideas. Yeah, and then I worked the steps and developed a relationship with a higher power that I was not interested in. No interest whatsoever, but my step 2 experience was very much about you all. And I saw it in your eyes. And you told me you'd been where I had been, and that you decided, you came to believe, you were willing to believe there was a power greater. So I was like, okay, I'll do it too, because, well, I'm hopeless. I'm out of ideas. So why don't I try this idea? And, I was willing to pick up the phone and say, I want to eat, I need help when I wanted to binge. And that was key for me. And I wasn't willing to do that until I was willing to do that, by the way. There were years where I was like, that's insane. I will not do that. I cannot do that. But I was willing to do that at one time. So I did it, one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, sometimes one minute at a time. I would call and leave messages on people's voicemails in tears. I don't think I can make it through the next hour without donuts or without McDonald's. You hear a lot of McDonald's here. That was a big thing for me. I was kind of embarrassed because I was like, at least I could have highbrow foods, but for me, it's I drive my partner by one of the places I used to go binge at. It's Long John Silver's. And I mean, that place should have been shut down a long time ago, but I didn't care. I was like, this is probably foul. I'm probably going to get sick, but I want the Long John Silver's. Who cares? Anyway, it's one day at a time. And I have 3 years and some odd months of one day at a time. If I stay sober today, and I believe I will, thank you, God, it's a miracle. Every single day for me is a miracle, because you see what it looks like. And, this is about God, and that is the solution here. And again, when I was new, I'd be like, what the hell is everyone talking about? This is so weird. What's the God thing? Is this a bunch of people, religious people? And it just isn't. It's just there's got to be a power greater than me. Someone in my group talks about the arsenal of proof of God. And I mean, I am somebody that's lucky. I can look in the mirror and see 200 pounds removed without great effort. I just work the steps. I just followed a food plan, and that's it. So if somebody wants a secret to significant weight loss, it's right here. It's the steps in this book. I know it's weird, makes no sense. Common sense thus becomes uncommon sense. But I have a life beyond my wildest dreams. And one of my favorite shares I heard recently, it was in Los Angeles a couple months ago, was this idea of the life beyond my wildest dreams, right? And it's let me be clear. I don't have the life beyond my diseased wildest dreams, right? In my disease, I mean, my wildest dreams are that I'm a famous singer. I'm jealous of Taylor Swift because I think I could have done that. I'm the CEO of a company. I marry a millionaire and spend my weekend on yachts with our friends. Like, I have a perfect body because, by the way, I might be at a healthy body weight, but I do not have a perfect body. Okay, those are my dreams and disease. But and I have like 20 seconds, so I'm just stopping my timer and I'm gonna finish here. Like, the life beyond my wildest dreams is that I don't have to kill myself with food today. Like, that actually is beyond my wildest dream, because never in my wildest dreams did I think I could get a day out of the food, much less out of the food obsession, which I also don't experience. A life beyond my wildest dreams is that I can feel sad, I can experience intense grief, and I don't have to use food. A life beyond my wildest dreams is that, like, nothing's changed. Like, I have the same house. I actually have a job that pays me significantly less. I have the same family. I mean, I have new things in my life, but like, life beyond my wildest dreams is that I just get to show up today, and I can show up for people and do what I say I'm going to do and be a person who can actually help others. Think about someone other than myself, even just for like 60 or 120 seconds. That's a life beyond my wildest dreams. So I will stop there, and thank you.
Well, Lindsey, thank you so much for a message of such a message of depth and weight. I'm just going to read out a little paragraph of page 511 after your story. It's one of the stories in the big book called Gutter Bravado. So today I'm much more comfortable with life, as Alcoholics Anonymous has promised, and I know they're right when they say it keeps getting better. My circumstances have steadily improved as my spiritual life grows and matures. Words cannot begin to describe the feelings in my heart as I sometimes ponder how much my life has changed, how far I've come, and how much yet there is to discover. And though I'm not sure where my journey may take me next, I know I'll owe it to the grace of God and to 3 words of the 12 steps: continue, improve, and practice. Oh, and one more thing they told me: humility is the key.